Good afternoon. I'm here today with our Educators of the Year from Mount Horeb School for the 2020-2021 school year, our fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Cristina Trump, and our school nurse, Doris Zanchelli. Welcome, both of you, and thank you for taking some time to speak with me about your history in the Warren Township schools and your experiences in this crazy year we've had going all the way back to March. So, Mrs. Trump, would you just start off by telling us a little bit about your history in the Warren Township schools?
Of course. Hi, I'm Cristina Trump. And my history here in the school district started before I even taught here. I grew up in Warren. So I attended Central School and Warren Middle School before I went to the high school. Then I started substitute teaching back in 2008. And in 2009, I had my first teaching gig over at Central School as the fifth grade teacher. I moved over to ALT for 6 years where I taught fourth and third grade. And then Mr. Cook asked me to move to Mount Horeb and teach fifth grade. So I've been here for 5 years and I'm in my 12th year teaching.
Excellent, thank you. And Mrs. Zanchelli.
Hi, I'm Doris Zanchelli and I am the nurse at Mount Horeb. And I started 15 years ago as the district per diem nurse. And then within the year, I was asked to be the full-time nurse at Mount Horeb. So I've been here ever since.
Excellent. And welcome again to both of you. And Mrs. Zanchelli, would you talk, why'd you go into school nursing in the first place?
Well, I think I was introduced to school nursing really shortly after my first child. And that was like a pivotal time, like having children. And so I was introduced to some courses and I really enjoyed them. And so I decided to make a career change. And I really enjoy building relationships with the kids and advocating for their physical and emotional needs. And when I think about nursing and education, they really go hand in hand, whether you're in the hospital or you're in the school with students, you're always kind of educating. So I do enjoy the elementary students. They bring a lot of laughs and they have a lot of questions and they're just a fun group of kids.
Great. And Mrs. Trump, how about you? Why did you choose to go into teaching as a career?
My earliest memory of wanting to be a teacher is actually in Miss Hand's fourth grade class, who is now Stacy Munduño, our curriculum supervisor. I was in her fourth grade class and I remember seeing her grading papers with those silver pens that had like the double-sided blue red ink. And I thought how cool it must be to be a teacher. I totally want to do that. I had so much fun in her classroom. And then later on, I babysat, and then I eventually became an assistant dance teacher at my dance studio, Miss Kim School of Dance. I fell in love with teaching kids of all ages, and I already loved dancing. So I took some child development courses at the high school. And while I was there, my calculus teacher, my senior year, picked up on that I wanted to become a teacher. She offered an opportunity for me to teach her sophomore class a geometry lesson. And I taught it, loved it. She was a great help. She thought I was going to be a math teacher. Little did she know I really wanted to do elementary education. And I was hooked, so I knew I had to be a teacher.
Do you have the reversible pens?
I don't. They don't have them anymore. It was like the first thing I looked for.
You can't find that stuff anymore. I know, it's all changed.
With the school specialty order, it was the first thing I looked for. I was like, oh, they don't have those anymore. The old school ones, at least, they don't have that.
Right. So staying with you, Mrs. Trump, what's been the most challenging aspect of teaching in this COVID-19 environment that we've been in since March?
I think the most challenging aspect of this, and I assume most teachers would say this, is that you don't see your students every day in person. Some you don't even see at all if they're full-time. And that's kind of hard because you want them to feel connected and you want them to feel engaged with you. So that's really difficult. I love those quick chats with them and being able to touch base about how their weekends went or what they do. And that's been the most difficult. But I do have to say our fifth graders here have done a tremendous job adapting to this whole new normal. And they've kind of made it a little bit easier for us because they've risen to the occasion.
Very nice, thank you. And Mrs. Zanchelli, so obviously as a school nurse, this is a pretty interesting time for you. What's been challenging about that in your role?
I think the most challenging has been the multiple revisions of CDC and state guidelines and just trying to stay on top of everything and educating the students, parents, staff, just on the updates and, initially how to use PPE and the quarantine isolation protocols, just trying to educate and try to get rid of the misinformation and educate the community. But also I find it tricky. I can't get into the classrooms as much as I want to. The schedule's tight. So I do enjoy the win period because I can sneak in there and try to either pull a student to talk to them or speak to a class about something.
And you both kind of addressed a little bit of the next question in your answer to that one, which is something that educators often do. We spin from the negative to the positive pretty quickly. So staying with you, Mrs. Zanchelli, what's been an area of success you've experienced this year?
I think I'm just amazed how cooperative the kids have been and resilient and flexible. They're wearing their masks, they're distancing, they're washing their hands. But I in the beginning, for some students, it was very hard. They were very anxious about removing the mask, snack, or even coming down to see me. But I was able to really talk with those students and just hear from them their fears and reassure them we have a lot of safety protocols in place, and how does someone get sick, and just working with them and seeing how they gradually got more comfortable and were engaging more with their peers and actually would come down to see me without standing by the door and not coming into the room. So I felt that was good. Like the anxiety level was brought down, a bit.
Thank you. And what about in the fifth grade classroom, Mrs. Trump? What's been an area of success this year?
So we've had several successes, but I think the reason we've been successful is because of the team that I work with. My co-teacher, Chris Burkhart, and my colleagues, Lisa Luco and Justin Guglielmino, we've worked really well as a team together to support the students so that they can thrive and be successful. Plus the support from the rest of the colleagues in the administration. You guys have been wonderful. I think to kind of piggyback off what Doris had just mentioned, that the students' resiliency and being able to adapt to this kind of new normal that they had, also noticing that we all know students learn differently and that they're becoming a little more self-aware in how they learn. And some of our students have actually thrived in the current environment with the smaller classroom sizes, more freedom of choice because of the technology. So all those life lessons that kind of tied into the academic successes, I think, have been really helpful for all of them.
Great. Thank you for those examples for both of you. And so, Mrs. Trump, when your students think back on this unique time, what do you hope that they're going to remember about being in your class and your time together?
I hope they remember that they did it, that they survived even with the pandemic, and they learned and they grew and they made friends and they were able to get through whatever it is that we're going through right now and come out on the other end a better person, grow through fifth grade, become better academically. And in general, I just want them to remember all those little lessons that we teach them along the way. Hopefully they apply to their own lives in the future and they can think back like, oh, I remember when in fifth grade in this lesson, or Mrs. Trump taught us this, and they kind of reflect back like, wow, I remember that from fifth grade in the middle of a pandemic. I could do anything. So I hope they come out of this on the other end really proud of themselves.
And Nurse Zanchelli, you have an interesting perspective because for some students, you've known them for 7-8 years that they were in preschool with us. What do you hope they'll think back on in the future when they remember this time?
Yeah, I hope they remember that they felt safe here. Like they felt like Mount Horeb was a safe place, that I was a safe person to confide in, that I had an influence on how they learned to take care of themselves, and that they became better detectives. I always ask a lot of questions when they come in with a symptom or a stomach ache or headache, and that they can start asking those questions like, well, did I get a good night's sleep? did I eat breakfast? Well, maybe that's why I don't feel so great. And so they can sort of, start taking care of themselves and be better advocates for themselves.
So before we kind of wrap up here, I just want to say thank you to both of you again, not only for agreeing to have this conversation and share your stories, but for everything you've done, not only this year, but going all the way back to last spring as well. We're at the 10-month mark of this sort of environment. And I think our kids are thriving to the extent they are, as you described it, because of people like you who are working so hard to make that happen. So congratulations on the well-deserved honor as Educators of the Year at Mount Horeb. And again, thank you for everything. It's been great to hear a little bit more about your stories today.
Thank you.
Thank you.